Well, I think teacher action research is really a response to the work that came out, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago about the inquiry stance in teaching and how that the argument really was teachers need to be inquirers in their classrooms. And it's so clear to me in working with my students. I mean, I've been a teacher educator for 20 years. So when I work with my students, one of the first things that happens for a teacher, a new teacher, is they get into a school, sometimes teachers complain, you know what a school environment is like, and they just get sort of demoralized by the negativity of the other teachers and kind of the system. So I really try to help my students, and I do this whenever they go on some negative rant. They say, and I say, can you turn that into a question? Can you turn what you're feeling about what's happening in your classroom? What questions come to you from this experience that you're describing? And I think it is a tremendously powerful framework adjustment when teachers start thinking about their classrooms and the problems they're having, not as problems, but as questions. And so for me, I think that's where teacher action research really starts, is with the questions that teachers have that, frankly, only teachers can answer about their classrooms. I mean, the model that we have where the research is done at the university and then it kind of dribbles down maybe to the superintendents, and then the superintendents maybe fan it out to the principal. I mean, that whole system of research delivery is what teacher action research tries to flip on its head.
And I would assume too that a lot of that research is also kind of caked into progressive ed as well, which is that's really what we're expecting from students, which is students are the inquirers, and then teachers are the inquirers watching their students inquire, which is kind of this whole flip narrative. Could you speak a little about how teacher action research then advances progressive ed in that pedagogy and mindset?
Well, I think that, and I'll talk a little about the transition of my students as they're developing action research proposals, because I think that they start out, it takes them a long time to shape questions. They start out by thinking they're going to do a survey or they're going to look at student grades or whatever, typical kind of statistical stuff. And we spend a lot of time talking about student voice. And so they move along in their journey from thinking about, all right, I need to collect their grades and then see if the attendance affects the grades or whatever. And they come to a point where they're really interested in hearing what the students have to say about whatever the questions are. So the shift into the focus on student voice and trying to understand students' lived experiences in their classrooms I mean, there is probably no more foundational principle in progressive education than student voice. Then the students are part of this mix and this community. And I've even started. So as my students get their research data collection stuff together, I always encourage them to do a community engagement board where I say to them, if you have these questions, why don't you write this on a poster board and have the students answer this in public on a paper so everybody in the community can see how everybody feels. So that notion of the classroom or the school as a community is really fostered when teachers engage in action research where they're speaking to students and having students involved in shaping that research.